Well, when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse, they say, is inevitable. The President and Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces has been doing a lot to reposition the country. But the major question is, what are they doing to ensure that the key sectors of the economy is being given a fair share as far as the position in the economy is concerned? Well, we have in the studio with us some guests that will be joining us to x-ray the front line of this discussion. We've got from my immediate left, Dr. Loretta Oduwari Oburu Oko. She's a clinical educationist, a medical simulation trainer, and women and youth advocate. She's a humanitarian and a global ambassador. And of course, she's a trained obstetric and gynecologist expert. And away from that, she's the president of University of Benin Alumni Association, United Kingdom branch. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning. Thanks for having us.
All right, thank you for coming. Of course, from my extreme left is Dr. Henry Emeka Obidi. He is the director and, of course, chief executive officer of NECVID Institute. He's a film producer. He's an award-winning author. And, of course, Dr. Henry is a global analyst. Thank you so much, Dr. Henry, for coming.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, let's start with Dr. Loretta.
Yes.
Talking about the key sector of the economy, what are the major key sectors? Let's get to know it first before we now start extracting the front line of the discussion.
The key sectors of the economy, you have power, you have security, and then we should never underestimate health and education. Very, very important. And obviously, you have things like food security. And then you're going to have to talk about the oil and gas, the production, which is what everybody is looking at now. And all of that things that make it all work. So there's transportation, there is the civil service aspect of it as well. There's the whole hub of governance. All of these things are the sectors of the economy. But like I said, the four major ones, I've talked about them. And Nigerians know what these are. You know.
Okay, Dr. Harry, quickly, what's your assessment? She just analyzed some of the key sectors that we have. From her analysis, what's your assessment so far?
Yeah, basically, for my assessment, it's rated into maybe three stages. We have the primary, the secondary, and then the tertiary. The primary includes agriculture, production in general. I mean, agriculture, farming, raw materials, excavation, and the rest. The secondary includes manufacturing. That's anything that has to do with creation, industry, and the rest of them. And then the last one includes services, which involves activities of health, entertainment, and every other thing that directly relates to any form of services given. And these major three groupings accommodate all power, everything, all the sectors that we have. And beyond that, they are the three legs on which the economy of any country can strive successfully if well administrated.
Oh, okay, quickly, some analysts are of the opinion that Nigeria's two major problems are security and poor economic drive. Do you agree with that in any way, Dr. Loretta?
I do. Security and poor economic drive. If a place is not secure, if there is no stability, you're not going to have people coming in to invest. Even the people at home are not secure, they're not going to go to the farms. So from the small, the medium, and to the big enterprises, it's not going to work. You're not going to attract investors. So security is a major, major problem. And the economic drive, when people say the economic drive, what do they really mean? They mean an enabling environment to do business in. They mean what is the ease of small, especially, I keep going back to the small, medium enterprises.
The SMEs.
Yes, the SMEs. Because the big ones are like sharks they will probably survive. It's an ecosystem. But what is the ease? What templates is the government putting in place to actually make it easy for people like our mothers and our fathers in the markets, or those who want to start their small businesses, to get these things done? And not just getting it done, but to sustain it. The ease of getting credit, the ease of actually saying that, okay, these are the taxes, these are the rebates you will give to people who are just starting off business, so they can stand on their own feet, and so they can get that time to actually establish and begin to oil the wheels of the economy. If we do not create an enabling environment, then there's a problem. And that means that the microeconomy is going to be very deficient, and it's going to affect the overall macroeconomy. So it's important that these things are put in place. And when people talk about governance, we often think it's just governance at the national level. But what I'm saying is, at the local government level, the sub-national or state level, and then at the national level, everything must be harmonized to get people to actually, because it's when you create the environment that people will come and play. Government really does not have business in business per se.
You have to.
It's true.
You have to expatiate that.
So, what I'm saying is, if the government can create a level playing field, if the government can provide adequate power, let's use an example, maybe because I'm a teacher. Let's think about hairdressers, for instance. So there are hairdressers all over the place, every part of the country. What do they need? They need light, isn't it? They need power, and they need capital.
That's true.
The customers are there already. Almost every woman, 50% of the population wants to do their hair.
So they basically just need the enabling environment.
So what they need is, one, proper power. Light doesn't go off, so they are not buying fuel for gen. Yeah? And they are giving some sort of subsidy to say, I don't want to use that word right now, or some sort of grant to say, okay, for the first 1 year, the government is giving you X, Y, Z, or the government is reducing your taxation. Now, there's stable water for them to wash their hair as well. And then, in their shops, they are sure that when they leave at night, someone is not going to come and boggle it and take everything away.
That's security
What is
now.
going to happen? Because there's already a market, a lot of people are now going to come and say, oh, I can be a hairdresser, I can rent this shop, I can get power 24/7, I'm not going to spend money getting fuel, investing on that, and not making any profit. So they are sure that their profit margin is going to be substantial to cater for their family. So it's a feedback loop mechanism.
Okay.
And once the government is able to take care of these things, you just see everybody beginning to do business. It's simple.
Okay, Dr. Harry, quickly, what should the government do to ensure we have a level playground for everyone? What do you think they should do?
Yeah, from my perception, I totally agree with everything Dr. Loretta has said. Then I also want to add that beyond security, you see, one of the major problems we've had over the years, it's been over 10, 15, 20, 60 years, we've been crying for, x-raying the insecurity in Nigeria. But you see, insecurity is a reflection and extracts from a system. The problem we're having is not just insecurity, it's beyond insecurity. It's a system problem which includes predominantly the leadership. The leadership. So if there's going to be any change, even in insecurity, I mean, when we talk about insecurity, like Dr. Loretta has said, how do one come in to invest in a place that is security unstable? You cannot predict what happens before and what happens after. You cannot predict the aftermath of your investment. Like I said, I've said it before that Nigeria we have a white water economic system. And in a white water economic system, there's always tumult. If you go to the beach, if you look into the water so deep, it is blue. So that's blue ocean. That is a state of stability where you can predict your investment. You can say, okay, you can actually ascertain productivity. That is the relationship between input and then output. But then we are in a whitewater situation where you put in certain amount of funds, but you are not certain on what comes back because there's a lot of tumult. And most of this tumult is created by a high level of insecurity. But insecurity cannot work on its own.
Okay.
Are you telling me that the people who foster most of these insecurity situations in Nigeria, we cannot find them? Do we not have the resources to actually track every armed robber that exists in our communities from the local police stations? Do we not really sincerely know the politicians that are actually corrupt? We know these people.
So accurate database is very important.
Accurate database is important, but the problem is these data are actually available. Utilization of the available data and then doing what is supposed to be done by the leadership, the system. I said it's a system problem. Corruption, the Nigerian system is not corruption. Corruption is the system in Nigeria. And this insecurity is a pigment of this corruption that we have suffered over the years. So if we really want to curb insecurity, I mean, some time ago, I wouldn't want to mention it for indictment and all of that. Something happened in Nigeria. And then everybody kept quiet about it. But when it happened to certain region and affected certain groups of persons, within 24 hours, we had results. You remember a few years ago, or would I say 2 years ago, still in this country, we had a fugitive and all of that. Within 12 hours, the American Secret Service came into the country, tracked them out, and routed them back. So what is wrong? It's a system problem. And if you ask me this question, what would the government do to take care of this insecurity issue? I think that the government should begin to redefine, create new narrative for administration. Okay. And this new narrative must fight insecurity. Okay,
Dr. Loretta, someone once said, nothing works until someone is working it out. In the past administration, though I don't personally like talking about them again, but some of the ministers actually said that they found themselves in ministries they practically know nothing about. And of course, we knew how that administration turns out. It ended in apology. You know, Nigerians were asked to forgive them. So do you think if we have the right persons in place, the right manpower in place, our economy will be repositioned properly?
We all know that there is what you call skill, there's what you call experience, and then there's the overall intelligence. But they don't exist in isolation. You must bring all of them into synergy and optimize it. We need to have the right pegs in the right holes. We need to actually bring in people who are not just certificate holders, but who have been in the field. When I say in the field, if I have a PhD in primary healthcare, for instance, I've had a master's in it, I'm a medical doctor, but I have never really been in the field. I've never really been to a private healthcare center. Or maybe I've been to a private healthcare center in Canada, but I've not been to one in Nigeria. Then you bring me in to come and manage the healthcare system in Nigeria. I will need a lot of time to adjust and to acclimatize. There should be what is called a root cause analysis. So I think what the government of the day should do is to get the right people with the right experience into the right places, people who have been in the field and people who actually have an understanding of what is happening. But more importantly, they should bring in people who have empathy and who understand the meaning of value for human life. Because like my fellow speaker here has said, corruption is in the system, it's a symptom. There's an underlying pathology. So what do I mean? If you do not have empathy, you are not going to go and do the roads that money has been allocated to do. The symptom of corruption will manifest under the auspices of you not having empathy and understanding value for human life. Because if you have value for human life, you will know that if that road is bad, about 300 people may die daily on that road just from accidents. And some of them could be your relatives. You see, these are the things we do not think about. We don't think about things on the long term and how it affects the 133 million multi-dimensionally poor people that our own Bureau of Statistics quoted sometime last year from data. This is not me. This is not Loretta talking. This is what we are being told, that we have 133 million multi-dimensionally poor people. And a lot of these poor people, the common thread that runs through this poverty is access. access to healthcare, access to education, access to transportation, access. So if the government of the day is employing people and bringing in people to come and be proper administrators and people who actually will run the system, they need to get people who understand what it means. Because I was in Nubiaja recently and I could see that government is very far removed from the governance. Or from the governed.
Could that be the absence of local government administration?
It's not only the absence of the local government administration, that may be part of it, but generally in Nigeria, we have a huge power gradient. You see a man come down from a car and the door must be opened first. He goes into a place and the first sentence is, "Do you not know who I am?" Even in our societies and our families. And these things is the same Nigerians that are in our society and in our family that are in governance.
Okay.
So you must understand that we must bridge these gaps. We must reduce the cost of governance. We must bridge the pressure and power gradients to get things to begin to function.
Talking about pressure, Dr. Henry, the previous government experienced what we called, or what were known as the Cabal. You know, it was a serious one. We heard they were part of the government, they were part of the system, and they mounted pressure on the immediate past president. Do you think, because government is a continuous process, President Muhammadu Buhari is back to Daura now, I presume. Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the president, is in power. Do you think he's going to have issues combating the cabal as he tries to revamp the economy?
Well, we have just mentioned two names, and these are the presidents. But then there's a big difference.
Former and present.
Yeah, former and present. There's a big difference between president and presidency.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about governance, we're looking at the presidency. It's not one man. And that's one thing we should understand as Nigerians. The fact that you do not like this particular person does not mean that he would not do well in governance, because most of the time it's not about him. The fact a leader might be the one who takes certain decisions, but then there are a group of people who come together as administrators. We have the National Assembly, we have administrative arms that take this decision. So in view of the cabal, we must also know that the cabal is not an obvious thing. It's not something you could point hands and say, okay, this one is part of the cabal, that one is part of the cabal. The question I might like
some names were mentioned.
Yeah, some names were mentioned, but then what were the facts to prove?
Okay.
As individuals, that these people meet and determine what happens in the country. So, in lieu of your question, I would like to say that I feel very, very strongly. I have faith. I'm an optimistic person at all times. Whatever my passions were, where we have found ourselves in Nigeria, my only support is for the progress of the country. And whatever it takes, let this country leave where it is now to where it's supposed to be. So I have faith that the present administration would do well. And the cabal might be is a system, and it will be hard to confront. But that is if the present administration is equally not a part of the cabal.
Okay.
And if it is still that part of a continuing cabal, I would want to recommend that there should be readjustment in a lot of ways. At least that I can say diplomatically. Okay. That is if.
Okay. Now, May 29th was when the baton of leadership was handed over to President Bola Tinubu as the president of the Federation. He started working, and about 3 weeks into office, which aspect of the economy sector should he focus on? He's been working, bills are being signed, work is going on, but where should he focus on? Where should he kickstart from?
We saw that he already kickstarted with removing the subsidy, and then now he's streamlining the value of the naira. I think these are good steps, but what Nigerians want to see is transparency.
Okay.
They want to see how that 6 trillion naira that is leaving the subsidy is being utilized. And answering your question directly, I'll go back again to healthcare and education. Now he's tackling all of these other economic aspects. We shouldn't underestimate the fact that the healthcare and education in Nigeria is substandard.
True.
We shouldn't deceive ourselves. If any president now or any CMD in this country was to come down with a sudden acute condition, like maybe a sub-Iraq or something huge, can any of our hospitals actually boast of saving? When I say hospitals, I mean the state hospitals. I'm not talking of private hospitals. Can they boast of saving these individuals?
But we have the best hands, and they're actually going outside the country.
Yes, we have the best hands. And this is why I'm saying let's focus on basic healthcare and basic education. Because when you go back to the primary healthcare system and you focus on the basic healthcare and you adhere to the Abuja Declaration of 2021 and you increase the budget for healthcare, you are going to be solving a lot of problems at the grassroots. And prevention is far, far cheaper, better, and wiser than cure. We know that the WHO recommends that you should have one doctor with a ratio of 600 patients. In Nigeria, you have 200 million people. How many doctors do we have? Maybe about 50,000. So it means that we have our own Nigerian problem. How are we going to solve it with respect to healthcare? We need to start thinking out the box. Leadership in healthcare. Healthcare workforce. You've just mentioned a lot of our doctors are leaving. But we can think out the box. We can't stop people from leaving because you've not provided the adequate work environment. You've not built their capacity. So, in fact, sometimes leaving is a good thing. They go out there, they see what's happening, and you get brain regain. A lot of them will come back. Go and mark my word. But we have to do the right thing to get them back. And these are sectors of the economy moving forward that we should focus on. Basic education, especially girl-child education. Educate a woman, you educate a nation. Basic, I'm saying primary school education at least, and secondary school. And then let us focus on technical education. When we focus on technical education, it dovetails into the industries. And then you're actually going to push production. There's no use us deceiving ourselves and building a house without a foundation, which is oftentimes what we do. These sectors are key, health and education, because they are social determinants of health.
Okay.
And they affect every part of your economy. If I am not well, I am in the power sector, how am I going to go to work? If I am not well, and I am even in that presidency, and not the president, I mean, like you said, how am I going to go to work? How are we going to function?
Okay, Dr. Harry, I would like you to quickly react to this. Though you are not a medical expert, per se, we already have a professional here. But apart from the medical experts who actually live in the shores of the nation, we also have youths that are actually jackbarring. Recently, Nigerians were placed on red lists. They were restricted. There was a form of restriction in the influx of Nigerians to the UK. Even the US one time, we were asked not to even come again. We were banned from having visa. What do you think the government should do or put in place to ensure that this jackbar syndrome is taken care of once and for all?
The government should first realize that there is an existing misplaced orientation in the minds of the youths. You see, already as we are, the average Nigerian youth is anticipating or has the perception that it's always greener
Out there.
However, there are certain sectors of the economy that has actually proven beyond doubt that you can actually survive here and even make more here. And that sector is the creative economy, communications. If you look deep into it and look at the Nigerian system generally, you would realize that a lot of the people, for instance, today now, I have some people coming from the US to come meet me to work with me here in Nigeria.
In Benin.
In Benin. And I'm talking about they're on the flight today. So there are some people who have focused on the creative economy and would I say bring it down to entertainment. But in lieu of answering your question, there should be a reorientation. But how do we do a social reorientation without using the tool of entertainment? It's not possible, no matter how we want to do it. Using the entertainment or emphasizing a bit on entertainment or a bit more or sequel entertainment with all other sectors will save Nigeria a lot. If you look at the country's GDP, almost 5%, okay, let's say 2.3%, is gotten from just the movie and the music industry.
So you're saying the creative
communications
industry,
as at 2021, produced about 70 billion US dollars. Now, if these economies are put in check, and then there is a proper administration on these economies or on this segment, you will realize that a lot of people will be given opportunities to express themselves. There is always, the sky is big enough for so many aeroplanes as long as it comes or relates with aeroplanes, with entertainment.
Okay.
I think the country needs to emphasize, give a little bit of attention to this sector called entertainment and communications.
We'll come to you and look at how the creative industry will boost our economy in a wider prospect. But let's come to Dr. Loretta. Healthcare system is very important, like you said. Let's look at rural healthcare system. Those in the rural setting, to an extent, some people feel they are not really getting a balance of a proper healthcare provision. Do you agree with that?
Yes, that's true. I think we need to look at the pillars of healthcare to tackle healthcare. And like I always say, people must realize that it's a system. It's not just one doctor or one nurse. It's a system that dovetails into every part of the economy. It's a system that works across board with different healthcare specialists. So when you talk about healthcare at the rural level, you are talking about healthcare workforce, especially one of the pillars, and healthcare service provision. So we're saying service provision, no need to start recreating the wheel. We already have primary healthcare centers. We have our National Primary Healthcare Act. We are saying renovate these things, think out the box. Healthcare workforce, especially linked to what you talked about, the Japa syndrome.
Yeah.
How many doctors and nurses are in the rural areas? Why are they living in the first place? Have we asked ourselves this question?
Even community health care workers are living too.
Why are they living? Once we answer ourselves these questions, then we can begin to stop the living. And the reason people are living is because they don't have good quality of life. There is no value for human life. If I'm a community health extension worker in an outback area, maybe or somewhere. I'm using Edo State as an example now. I don't have steady power supply. I don't have internet. I don't have, there are many things I do not have. Tell me, why would I remain there? So what we need to think about...
That's why they are giving rural posting allowance.
Well, those allowances are
and
like
hazard allowances too.
They're like knee-jerk reaction.
What do you mean by that?
Knee-jerk reaction is a fire brigade approach. So something is happening, quench the fire. You must go to the root. And going to the root, I'm going to tell us what we need to do. We need to consider in terms of workforce.
Okay.
We need to be realistic. We have 200 million Nigerians, so very few core service providers. So let's think about task sharing and task shifting and other ways we can domesticate and Nigerianize healthcare at the roots. And what do I mean? A practical example. We have traditional birth attendants. We know them. They've always been existing.
Yeah.
So what we need to do, and the community health extension workers, is to begin to train these people and retrain them. So we have a training the trainers kind of model. And then they know when to refer to the next big place. Okay. So you now find that you have more people in that locality to do the work, but they are doing it at standards comparable to international ones.
That's primary healthcare level.
Primary healthcare level. So what do I mean? I'll use a woman in labor. A woman is in labor and she has been laboring for 12 hours. You have now taught your traditional birth attendants, Madam or Mama, once you reach 10 hours, you don't get to that 12 hours. Begin to transfer this woman and go to the nearest.
You have the next 2 hours.
You have the next 2 hour window. Then the question now comes, how do you transfer? There's what we call phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 delays. Now, what kind of roads are there? You are going to now prototype. Is it Keke Napep that will navigate this place? Or is it a speedboat? Is it the Delta region? Is it somewhere in the outbacks of Bayelsa? So we need to think out the box to domesticate the problems and solve them in a domesticated
With that
manner.
mortality rate will reduce.
We will then reduce our Our maternal mortality rate.
Mm-hmm.
I calculated it the other day with the figures from the WHO, and sadly, about 150 women are lost daily in Nigeria just in the course of their 150 just in the course of their reproductive duties in Nigeria every day, and this is where we don't even have proper data. So let's think out the box. And we can do it. It's not rocket science. We just need to have the will. Someone who understands how to harmonize the systems. Can you see now that I am not telling you that you must bring a doctor into every village, but I'm telling you...
From your analysis.
From my analysis. I'm telling you how you can work from the community. And it's been trialed in other places. It has worked. We can do it.
Okay. Well, we'll be wrapping up in a jiffy, but let's just quickly take Dr. Harris' reaction. There was a time, though, we've forgiven him. Nigerian youth have forgiven the former president. He actually said, there was an allegation that he said Nigerian youth are lazy.
Yes.
They were lazy Nigerian youth. But however, that's on a lighter mode. But the entertainment industry, the creative industry, 99.9% of people in that sector are youth.
Yes.
How do we start giving them, repositioning their minds and bringing them out of the street? When I'm in the street, a good number of them are already tinting towards defrauding people to make it.
Yes.
This make it quick syndrome is part of the problem we are experiencing. A lot of them has resolved to ritual process just to get money at all costs. How do we start harnessing and harmonizing and inculcating them into the creative industry?
Generally is recognition. First, we need to recognize, and then when you recognize, you inform, adequate information. Now, in the process of recognition, we need to go back to the foundation of entertainment, which is described as intra, tain, and ment. 3 words from Greek and Latin. And the 3 words means to enter, to take possession, and then to control. To enter, to take possession, and to control. Now, this is where the philosophy of neurocinematics now comes in, which is a social influence that is creating a social perception using what enters the minds of people and then what influences the actions of people. Yeah. Now, one of the ways to change these beliefs that we already have is by allowing or informing the entertainer on the power that he controls. And then you cannot inform me of the power that I control if you don't get involved in enhancing this power that I control positively. Neurocinematics is one of the ways you can create a social influence in the area of health. The health practitioner could come out and decide to do, if you have about 15 producers associated with you, and all of them begin to do health-related projects that teach on certain things that one can do as a first aid. I tell you, there is no form of orientation that you can do that will spread as fast as that. Now, in all segments, agriculture, industry, all segments, all you need to do is embrace this arm. The truth is, many of these young persons go into these practices because, as I said, whitewater situation, the system in the country is not giving them a feedback that they want and all of that. Then finally, the government should also put up a system, monitoring system. We are too loose in our administration. How can somebody who cannot basically earn 100 million in a year buy a house of 300 million and there is no form of agency? The agencies exist. I always say this, all the structures we are talking about, I love what Dr. Loretta said, that she is not asking for a creation of a system that is not existing. She is requesting for the functionality, the function of the existing system. All of these systems, monitoring systems, I don't want to mention the government of
ICP,
I don't want to mention, you mentioned them, all of them exist, but it has been used as tool for witch hunting.
But they are working.
Yes, they are working. They are working, but they need to do more. How do you monitor the bank accounts? We have BVNs. That means that all my bank accounts can actually be monitored. Why would I have $1 billion in my account when my capital income, my return on investment cannot give me up to 100 million. So if you checkmate these things, just like they do in a few other countries, if you're able to checkmate these things, then you'll be able to curb this ritualist syndrome, this drug abuse that we, drug peddling that we have, and all of these things. A lot of people have used entertainment today as a cover. To wash their money. And then it is now, and because we are not giving out a narrative, the narrative out there to the younger generation, the youth, is get rich or die trying. So you see an actor who is earning probably 1 million per film, and he can only do like 2-3 films or 2 films in a month. You see him buying a house of 500 million. Then you begin to fight and work to see, because that now sets a benchmark. But if the government recognizes neurocinematics, that I can actually correct the orientation of not just the producers of these films themselves, but also the public, I can actually give a youth perception. Right now we have a new system of government. In America, it was used critically, and every human being, including you and I, assume, it might be an erroneous assumption, that an American president is a hero. We see them as if they loom larger than life. It is because of the orientation that was given via the entertainment industry. If you look at programs that we have also supported by the government in America, you have a lot of projects dealing on health issues. I have learned a lot of first aids by watching there's this doctor program that they do, where people come in with different issues from this, and then they administer it, and in the process of that administration, we are able to learn what to do. So I feel that, number one, the government should recognize neurocinematics and the power that it has to control and influence the minds of people. And then secondly, there should be a strict control of our flow. Our system is too loose. Okay,
let's quickly come to Dr. Loretta. The oil sector controls every aspect of the economy to an extent. To an extent? So what's your take on the subsidy removal?
One, we should not be a mono economy. Nigeria is too blessed to be a mono economy. We are underutilizing our blessings. And I want to thank you, for Dr. Henry, for your take on how entertainment can actually make a difference. I believe that, and I said it at the beginning, the subsidy removal is not in itself a bad thing. A lot of people were enriching themselves under this facade subsidy. So it has been removed. But how it was removed is what Nigerians queried. Was there a cushioning? Was there measures in place? The average woman in the market, did she know that this was going to happen and the effect it would have on her? The question is simple. I'm going to perform surgery on somebody, and I don't think of how to manage the pain. I just carry the person and cut the leg. That's really barbaric. And I think that's what Nigerians are querying. Again, the transparency. You are telling me that you have now removed subsidy, you're going to save about 6 trillion naira. Beautiful. But where is it going to go to? Where is it going to go to? Nigerians deserve to know. And if I am in the current government or governance, or I have a place there, I am going to put it in public domain. 1 trillion has gone here. 2 trillion has gone there. And the people who head the places they have gone to, their names will be published so that Nigerians will know who to ask. People will be held accountable for their actions. There will be transparency. Because Nigerians for a long time have become very suspicious of governance, and you cannot blame us. So transparency is important. Healthcare deserves a good chunk of that money, as does basic and technical education. We do deserve it. And we need to understand that every other sector, food security, power, everything deserves it, but will create value for Nigerians, value for Nigerian lives. Nigerian patients and every Nigerian is worth this value. It's very important.
Okay. All right, I think this is how far we can go. I'm actually having a feel of this conversation. If you leave me, we're going to wrap up the whole segment with this talk and point. Meanwhile, thank you so much, Dr. Henry, for taking time to come, and of course, Dr. Loretta. Regards to your lovely husband.
I will.
He's actually watching right now.